Welcome to the Private Equity Exchange 2007, the only summit bridging the gaps between limited partners, private equity funds, corporate executives, and entrepreneurs. The Private Equity Exchange is the only venue where LPs, private equity firms, corporate executives, and entrepreneurs meet, enabling them to move quickly from ideas to deal crafting. The Private Equity Exchange, the largest private equity event in Europe for CEOs, funds, and LPs. Restructuring, managing underperformance, early intervention, managing fading beauties and falling angels.
Good morning and welcome. So my purpose today is to introduce very briefly the world of management in the troubled businesses. And I have chosen to present just a quick overview based on our experience and without examples because I won't have enough time, and my colleague I think will present more examples later. So first of all, let's move to the definition of risk, problem and crisis. I want, in fact, to introduce early intervention with these notions. Often people confuse them. The risk is just potential danger, and this danger, in fact, could happen, but not necessarily. Of course, in an ideal world, it's the best moment to act, but we all know that's completely utopian. In the problem phase, it's the first symptom of difficulties, but not really critical. And then comes the crisis situations. We are in this in a critical phase. Most companies act here. Usually we are called in this phase, and I put 99% of situations. To give you just a couple of examples, one outside business, it's Katrina hurricane. The risk, everyone knows, New Orleans could be under water. A possible action in this phase, build a dam. Problem phase comes, Katrina is announced, a possible action, evacuation. And then the crisis, Katrina is on New Orleans. It's always like that. Another example, the A380 production process were installed. One factory didn't apply it. It's a risk. Problem started, which led to a 2-year delay. We are in a crisis situation. So to be realistic, early intervention will occur in the problem phase. And the first action is to change the type of management, not to change the management, but the type of management. And the internal-external relationship as well. Next, please. So here I just want to draw your attention to two types of management. Everyone knows, on one hand, day-to-day management, on the other, the troubled business management. I just want to introduce the second. Next, thank you. To be more precise, in day-to-day management, you have ongoing business as usual, normal activities, synonymous, but just to fix ideas. Troubled businesses, stress situations, exceptional conditions, critical liquidity issues, underperformance, troubled LBO, M&A, troubled M&A or just M&A. And M&A is always a stress moment in the life of a company. So how could the company manage troubled situation? Next, thank you. I propose here two scenarios. Introduction, exceptional versus normal business. Scenario one is the most common one. Everything is running smoothly. Then we have a risky phase happened. And here we have a lag time, always lag time, 1 day, 1 week, 1 year, depend on the company. And we move into a more critical phase. And finally, we go out and, okay, scenario two, it's exactly the same thing. just the company well balance the effort between day-to-day management and the effort for exceptional management. And in the scenario one, in fact, the most part of the management has dedicated at its time to the most part of his time to the daily crisis. Easy answers. Easy because, in fact, the answers to this crucial question could seem so easy, but really harder to apply. First, how can a company tackle a crisis or underperformance? Introduce a specialized and dedicated team, even from inside, but introduce this kind of team. What percentage of management effort should be spent on dealing with the problem phase? First, don't ignore day-to-day management because you have to eat and to preserve the future. And the right balance, something simple, is when you still have enough time for day-to-day management. And really an easy answer, how to make going back to business as usual easier, just apply the previous rule. How could the company shorten the crisis period? So how could the company shorten the crisis period? So first of all, control the risk process. Reduce the lag time. I think you remember in the previous slide, the lag time is duration before acting in a problem phase. Introduce external view. You can see the wood from the tree. Day-to-day management is too involved in his company. He's the last one to realize. Bring in a more complete specialized team. Specialized because specialized people are used to deal with liquidity crisis, with M&A situation, and they have quick and the best reflex. A specialized team hits the ground running. Next, please. And now, what about the management team? We always propose, even in a small company, a multidisciplinary team. One reason, look at the problem from different angles. Usually you have finance and day-to-day management, it's the minimum. Sometimes crisis management is added. Sometimes lawyers are added. And we prefer to introduce all these skills and to add HR too. More than that, we suggest to have our own coach during this process. Next. Another important point in the early intervention phase is to map out the scene. The company has to pay attention to all the actors. And okay, I'll let you discover the actors, but usual actors. Next. I propose key success factors for an early intervention. The first days, assess the real needs of the company and the initial view of realistic objectives. Bring in a dedicated external team, this famous external team, and build the whole management team. And after these first days, next, within the first 2 weeks, we propose to introduce, with this multidisciplinary team, to over-communicate with all the actors and to don't be an ostrich. Determine the business cartography, viability of business, nature of problems, risk analysis, control and manage the catch. Just want to introduce a sentence from Warren Buffett. When the management team with a reputation for brilliance tackles a business with bad economics, it's the reputation of the business that remains intact. Okay, just to give you example of one of our recent cases, which was, by the way, considered as a lost cause. Within 36 hours of being contacted, it was at the beginning of 2007, we had taken control of different hotels and had brought together a team of 16 professionals. And 10 days later, we were able to submit a 300 pages report detailing our diagnosis. The company, valued at 400 million euros, was running at a loss of 150 million for our client. We sent in 5 financial managers, 2 HR managers, a legal advisor, a selection of specialists, hotel specialists, some of whom were mobilized for 9 months. And as a result of our intervention, our client was able to resell his share without encountering any loss, and in fact he made a profit. And one rule, just to conclude quickly, the earlier the better, of course.
Yes, it's a business case driven by ERG Europe, a professional services executive firm in transition management. So it's a case focused on a large corporation in automotive, BorgWarner turbo system, and the focus was last year in 2006 on accelerating and generating improvement to a customer who recognized he can still do better. It's the idea of improving in an accelerated phase under specific conditions. Next slide, please. We will give you in a snapshot the challenge first. Next slide. After, you will have the how, what do we have done really, and Mr. Cudel as a customer will share with you what are the results. So the challenge, next slide. First, the context. We have still a growing business for this company. It's a division of a large corporation, and this division only was more than 1 billion euro business in a tier 1 equipment supplier. So the top management expected in 2006 to still accelerate the business performances in a complex environment under complex situation from the competitive side with other customer or from the supply base side, and requested external support. The goal was for the management to maintain and improve the overall leadership in automotive turbocharger. We speak about accelerating. We are in a turbo business, supercharging the business, okay? Just for the gimmick. This business was in need of accelerating, anticipating further competition on the markets. Inbound markets from the supply base or outbound markets with the competition. Next slide. The plan, ERG presented and took over a 9-month plan focused on purchasing budget around 55% of the turnover, the revenue of the company, and on re-emphasizing the supply-based management strategy. Next slide. The targets that we assigned to ourselves and to the BorgWarner top management is to achieve 1% annual additional cost savings in an industry which generate average 2 to 3% per year. So we are speaking here the famous 1% more, you know, like Mr. Attali, the keynote speaker, is looking for 1% growth more for the French. We are looking here to generate on anything else who was done in the past 1% more cost savings with an immediate impact for 2006 and the coming years. Second impact was to maximize vendor performances overall, not only on price, through one leverage, using negotiation as key leverage, and support the BorgWarner teams on supply-based management and the supply-based strategy, implement as well later on best practices to leave the company on a sustainable success story. Next slide. How do we did this?
Yes, next one.
Next slide. ERG assigned one executive first and proposed this approach, and the contract was signed 16 January 2006. and the mission ended in September 30th. Next slide. Because it's an incremental, we validated with finance from the customer, with purchasing, with quality, with all the key departments involved in this effort. We validated where are we today, what is coming from the past, still under negotiation, to be sure the baseline is clear for everybody. Next slide. We did after key preparation. Before negotiating, it's better you know what you want to tell to your key suppliers. So we did the preparation work internally at the corporation with a key lead buyer, with the key managers, with the key quality, service, delivery, and so on. We did the preparation to be in a position to negotiate, knowing our business, knowing our strategy, knowing our category management, and having done the selection of the key suppliers where we are sure we will have a potential to negotiate something. And after, we add resource because we know we have a heavy plan of negotiation in front of us. We add a second full-time executive for the period of the operational negotiation phase. Next slide. We did CEO level, really CEO or shareholder level for some private company or some public company as well. CEO level negotiation, business review meeting on all topics, not only price. We discuss the strategy, we discuss the quality, we discuss the service, we discuss the long-term relationship, long-term partnering discussions. At CEO level, absolutely CEO. We have done this meeting only at CEO level, not at the classical commercial sales purchasing level. Next slide, please. And, of course, we started to generate cash in June 2006, having started the first meeting middle of March. And after we prepared the transmission of the best practices. Next slide. We did more than 57 full-ended negotiations. This means more meetings, not only 57 meetings, at supplier HQ or plants in 8 countries all over the place. Or we asked the Japanese and the Chinese supplier to come in Europe. Okay, I tell you, we had some boards of CEOs of suppliers coming over continent to make sure they are part of this effort. So we had 2 full-time executives and partially more than 25 BorgWarner leaders were involved in all these meetings and on the supply base HQ departments. We covered full strategy, the full quality review, the full service business review. We did, of course, a price productivity management review. And also we discovered and discussed some BRMs, 8 of the 57 were more focused. We discovered through doing these meetings, having necessity of discussing risk assessment, because we discovered situation where some companies were not anymore sustainable in the view of the strategies that we share with them, as well as we listened the strategy of the suppliers. Some suppliers had a strategy not to follow our own strategy. And it's fine. It's better to know it when you are a leader in an industry. How your partner are willing to go with you or put limits where they are not able to follow what is your strategy. And this has represented 70% of the renegotiable spend of the annual spend of 55% of the turnover.
What was interesting in 2006, it is also that we had to face some negative factors. In the turbocharging industry, we are using a lot of nickel because of the engines of the cars and trucks. And just to give you an idea, here we speak about millions of euros, 2-digit negative impact just with nickel increase. This was the situation in 2006. Also, the reality was we are still working with some unstable suppliers. Unstable in terms of performance, industrial performance, unstable in terms of how to finance their activity. We are some suppliers purchasing 60% of their turnover. So it's quite difficult sometimes to face such a raise of the nickel price. And this was the situation regarding the negative factors. Next slide, please. So the result was the following. It is clear that the target was to deliver more or less 1% of additional savings. Reality was 0.91%, so close to target. And we can say that this annual cost savings implementation has represented more than 1% of incremental savings year on year. So this was really the result of this activity. Next slide. And what I would say, I keep in mind following this task force using a specialist of the supply base management was the following. ERG and BorgWarner with key suppliers who worked all together for sustainable success. What was interesting in this activity was it is the first time that we had really a breakthrough with our suppliers in terms of relationship in order to really put in perspective our business. The turbocharging is a growing business, 2 digits per year, more than 10 to 11% just for the company. We speak about millions of turbochargers to produce everywhere in the world for the whole automotive and truck industry. BorgWarner, for his information, is the number 2 worldwide, but number 1 in the truck industry in terms of turbocharging. And what was interesting it is to, through this assessment, through this activity, to identify the strategic partners who would enable BorgWarner to grow, keeping the competitiveness that we should have with our customer, but as well, I would say, improving our profitability. So this was the main focus of this activity, and I would say with success we were able to do this baseline with ERG support in order to establish a long-term plan, selecting the right suppliers.
I'm Luc MARTY, partner with Mazars since 10 years, in charge of both corporate recovery and forensic accounting in Paris. I will present you a case study on which we have worked, which is a merging of 2 companies, one which was a failing company, and the second one, a much smaller one, a growing one. And it has been done with the support of a financial investor. Company A used to be profitable, but since 2 years has faced huge difficulties. B had been a company in difficulties and is now on a growing market and is highly profitable. My presentation will be in 4 parts. First, I will shortly present the 2 companies. This is the exact situation at the time we started our job of the 2 companies. Then the role of a third party, which was absolutely innovative or needed, which was a financial investor. Thirdly, we will present our managing role of the situation, and I will try to check very quickly what would have been or what should be synced about judicial proceedings that also could have been used at the end of this process. So first, the situation of Company A. Company A was in a very awkward situation because it has made 2 years ago a very significant investment in a new plant, a brand new plant, but made in fact on a declining market, which means that this Company A was losing a significant amount of money. And due to the fact that the volumes they were able to sell were less under than the volumes they had to produce to be able to reach break-even of the company. So it means that at the time we started our job, the financial debt of the company were over 12 million euros, and equity was lower than 2 million euros. And the company was seeing at a very critical time a shortage of cash. the situation of company B was completely different. It's a company which was working on the same market with the same type of technology, but on different products. And what was very interesting in this company is that she was operating, and she is operating on a very fast-growing market, around 20% per year. And the sales are exactly present a reverse seasonality than company A, which means that the major sales of A are made in winter, as the major sales of B are made in winter, as the major sales of A are made in summer. Which means that we felt that two companies could be very complementary. But we found that B couldn't afford to financially assume the financial situation of company A, and so there was absolutely a need of a financial restructuring and of an investor. And the role of the investor was absolutely needed for two main reasons. Because B needed, in any case, to invest and to enlarge its capacities of production, because due to the growing of the market, they were not able in their own plant to produce what their clients were demanding, which means that they had in any case to invest. A was, as I said, in a very difficult situation, and the shareholders hadn't not any credibility anymore. And they were not able nor to invest nor to negotiate the past debts. So it means that for the investment fund, investing in B would have been, or has been, a very interesting investment, because it gives B a higher credibility. It gives B the capacity to speed up its development, and it was a really huge gain of time, valued between 1.5 or 2 years before being able to build a new plant and develop by itself. And also it allows B to acquire very qualified human resources which were available in company A but not in company B. So it means that for the investor was also able to find a great interest in this merging of these two companies. How I come to the second point of my presentation. Our role was in fact mainly a role of facilitator, which means that we have had to convince both management and both shareholders that they have a real interest to work together. The shareholders of company A and the management of company were looking to find some partners in exactly the same type of business than the one in which they were operating. They had absolutely never sought to get in touch or get in contact with company A, with company B. And we also had to convince company B that the fact to invest in company A was a way for them to accelerate their development and use a tool which were there available and ready to use. And that's why it was one of our main difficulties, make them understand that there could be an interest and show the interest to both managers, the two managers and the two shareholders, that through an industrial study, a commercial study of both markets, and a financial analysis, there could be a way to come out of this difficult situation for the two companies. So it means that we have introduced the manager of company B to the specificities of the product and market of company A. We have prepared an industrial integration of the two companies and a combined business plan showing the financial interest of this merging. We have also, as you can imagine, determined the capex needed to achieve the transfer of production from B to A. And we have, with the shareholders and the financial investors, analyzed the management strengths and weaknesses in both companies, so to determine how the company, the merged company, should be managed in the future. But it was not only a financial, an industrial integration, as you have understood at the beginning, because there was also a financial difficult situation that which we had to deal with. And there are 2 points. The first one is we had to come from a single ownership of company A to a multi-ownership of these two of this A company and maybe B company. And we also had to manage to come from an overgeared to a variable equity debt situation. Which means that we have had to try to make the diverging individual preferences of shareholders on one side and managers on another side from the individual preferences of the industrial operator, which is company B, and the investment fund, to slightly move the one towards the other, so to be able to arrange a fair deal between former and future shareholders, but also former and future managers, which also meant that we had to organize an equitable control of the three parties on how the business and how the two companies, A and B, would be owned in the future. On the financial financial situation, the overgeared situation, we have, with the partnership of the investment fund, organized negotiations with the past creditors, which allow the company A to see a significant part of the debts being capitalized, and another significant part of the debts being writing off through a payment, a down payment, which has been made to some of the creditors. But we also have renegotiated the capital lease on the building, which were very significant and which were a point to come to a profitable situation in the future. And I will come now to my fourth point, which is in such situation, wouldn't be a better idea to just open judicial proceedings, to negotiate first the debt and after trying to make an industrial deal with company B. In fact, what we very quickly understood is that opening judicial proceedings would have very significantly damaged the relation between the company A and its clients. And it would, the financial or the economical situation would be much more difficult after these judicial proceedings than it was during the process of analyzing and organizing the merging of the two companies. On the second point, the negotiation of debts was much more easier in a voluntary arrangement scheme than it would have been and much more effective than it would have been in a judicial proceeding. And third point, in fact, using the time of the negotiations and with the industrial company and the investment fund, and after that opening a voluntary arrangement with the creditors was very efficient on one point. The negotiation had to be quick. It had to be organized in a very short time frame, and it had to be confidential. And that's why we thought it was much more easier to do it through the proceeding provided by French law, which are either mandat ad hoc or conciliation. And I will come to my conclusion, which is, in fact, troubled situations are often the result of the inability of the management of making quick decisions. The managers in place have to be helped to make these decisions, and even though voluntary proceedings are quick and easy ones, before any opening of that kind of proceedings, there is a huge work that has to be done, and this work can only be done if it is made quickly and soon or soon enough. And it means that proceedings have to be anticipated, and the project has to be prepared, that the project that will be negotiated, that will be proposed to past creditors, and the outcome of the negotiation should be anticipated before any opening of any proceedings.
After this presentation of case study, I want to talk about all the various theoretical aspects raised by the safeguard law, applicable since January the 1st, 2006. I think that the next speaker will deal with those issues. I just want to draw your attention to the different strategies to complete and the different and usable tools provided by the safeguard law to face a distressed LBO situation. In order to facilitate the restructuring of company, the safeguard law provides 5 different proceedings: special mediation, conciliation proceeding, safeguard proceeding, rehabilitation proceeding, and compulsory liquidation. The 2 first proceedings deal with negotiation. In our 15 years of experience, we feel that the full treatment of an underperforming LBO is notably subject to the following elements. First of all, high quality and fast information, and especially financial information. Secondly, intervention of specialist restructuring teams. You have to build a restructuring business plan and the capacity to define quickly the relevant proceedings to follow in order to make sure the company will be able to benefit from the available option. This is a very important point. At this stage, it seems useful to remind you that the opening of a special mediation of a safeguard proceedings requires the company not to be in state of cessation of payments. The opening of a conciliation proceeding is allowed when the company has been in state of cessation of payment for less than 45 days, excuse me. That's a new aspect of the law. If the courts decide to open proceeding, don't forget that only the debtors, which means the managers, are entitled to initiate a special mediation, a conciliation, or a safeguard proceeding. That means that shareholders and banker and creditors have nothing to say. The wrong decision in the choice of the proceeding can be disastrous. Distressed LBO doesn't mean that the company which runs the operating business has to be restructuring, but it can come from a cash flow reduction in terms of their initial business plan, which creates an obstacle in the repayment of part or its whole debt. In this case, most of the time, the restructuring of the holding occurs without the help of any tools provided by the safeguard law. The shareholders, the banking partner, and the managers will be able to find by themselves and easily an area of agreement concerning, in particular, the adjustment on the term of repayment of the debt. Within conciliation and conciliation proceeding and special mediation, the intervention of a third party appointed by the court can be a good way to negotiate with creditors, shareholders, and to make and keep contact with public authority. This is important if you want to negotiate terms of payment for taxes and social contribution. If confidentiality is guaranteed within special mediation and conciliation proceeding, according to the rising number of people who take care of these proceedings, the risk of leak is also increasing, and it's a very important matter for insurance credit for the company which runs business. Shareholders, banking partners, and buyer intervention aiming at injecting more money in the holding are favored by the abolition of the wrongful lending notion and by the creation of the super privilege of new money within the conciliation proceedings. During the last year, everybody sees in the documentation LBO equity cure. An equity cure is a legal right allowing a private equity investor or any other shareholders to inject further cash into a company. The cash injection improves the company's performance against lending ratio and protects it from breaching its covenants. Lenders dislike including an equity cure in their loan agreement because it can prevent them from taking action when a business is underperforming. Now, the frontiers between shareholders and seniors bank are fading. Some banking partners don't hesitate to convert their debt into security. You know that it's debt to equity swap. And why don't we create an equity cure for banking partners? When the financial troubles are more serious or when its subsidiaries need to be restructuring, the choice of the appropriate tools of the safeguard become the main thing. The safeguard proceedings, whose opening order leads to the freeze on debt payment and then to spread out payment over a period of time, can be a very attractive solution for holdings. At first, the possibility to open proceeding towards such entity was being debated, but according to our recent experience, in this matter, the commercial court seems obliged to accept it. Concerning the operating company, which have to face a social plan, the safeguard proceeding can be inappropriate on the two following grounds. Condition of the FNGS to support the unpaid wage at the date of the proceeding opening and of the social plan cost. The FNGS is a fund who guarantees payment of wage of the salaries. And The second ground is implementation of common provision according to a social plan. That means that the social plan won't be faster. So in this case, the rehabilitation proceeding can be more appropriate. To finish, I have to tell you that, in my opinion, safeguard law is really a potential tool for investment in fresh distressed LBO, but the law has to be improved.